My name is Rachel Ward, and 3 months ago, my father sold the apartment I'd spent 6 years saving for, a $350,000 dream that was supposed to be mine. He said it was for family reasons. He said I'd understand someday, but when I found out what the money was really used for, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at him across the kitchen table and said, "You'll regret this, Dad," because I already knew how I'd make him. The apartment was more than walls and windows to me. It was 6 years of missed vacations, skipped dinners, and every extra shift I could get. A corner unit overlooking the river, sun spilling through wide glass every morning. I used to call it my tomorrow. Dad called it a waste of money. Mom said he was just jealous. Maybe she was right. Growing up, we didn't have much. Dad worked in construction. Long days, hard hands, quick temper. He wasn't cruel, just tired. Mom worked nights at the clinic, and I learned early that dreams were expensive, so I didn't ask for help. I saved. Every raise, every freelance gig, every bonus went into that account. My little secret, hidden behind the login screen of a banking app. Until the day it wasn't. It started with a message. A short, simple text from Dad. "Come home tonight. Family meeting." He never sent texts like that. No emojis, no jokes, just that. That night, I walked into the house and smelled something off. Not food, not smoke, just tension. Mom was sitting on the couch, hands twisting a dish towel. Dad stood near the window, arms crossed, staring out into the dark. "What's going on?" I asked. He turned, his eyes red-rimmed but steady. "We needed the money, Rachel." "What money?" "The apartment." At first I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was impossible. "You can't sell my apartment," I said. "It's in my name." He looked at me like a doctor delivering bad news. "It was in your name." "Not anymore," Mom whispered. "Please don't yell, sweetheart." My throat went dry. "Where's the money, Dad?" He sighed, heavy and deliberate. "Your brother needed help. The bank wouldn't approve his loan. He's starting a business and a real opportunity." I blinked. "You sold my home. For Ethan's business?" "Your brother," he snapped, as if the word itself excused everything. "He's family. So am I." That's when I saw it. Guilt flickering behind his eyes. He believed what he did was right. That somehow I'd understand. That blood permitted him to take what wasn't his. Mom tried to reach for my hand. "Your father thought—" "Don't," I cut her off. "Just don't." I walked out before they could say another word. That night I didn't sleep. I just kept staring at my phone, scrolling through old photos, me in front of the apartment holding the keys, smiling like a fool. By morning, the anger came. Sharp, electric. Every text, every call from Dad, ignored. Every voicemail, deleted. 3 days later, Mom showed up at my door. I almost didn't answer, but she stood there with my favorite coffee and a face full of regret. "Your dad didn't mean to hurt you," she said. "He thought he was helping." "Helping who?" I asked. "Because it sure wasn't me." She hesitated. "He really believes Ethan's business could take off. He said once it does, he'll buy you something better." "A bigger place?" I laughed. This bitter, hollow sound that didn't even feel like mine. "Mom, he didn't just take my apartment. He took my trust." Her eyes softened. "Your father's pride won't let him see it that way. Then maybe he doesn't deserve to see me at all." She didn't argue. Just left the coffee on the table and walked away. Weeks passed. I went to work, smiled when I had to, and ignored every call from home. But inside, something was shifting. Not just anger and resolve. I started watching Ethan online. His business was a luxury car rental startup. Instagram reels, polished ads, champagne launches. He looked like he was living my dream. I stared at those videos late at night. The logo, the cars, the smug grin on his face. My apartment money, parading as his success. And every time Dad commented something like, "So proud of my son," my hands would shake. Then one afternoon, an envelope arrived. No return address. Inside, a check for $5,000 and a note in Dad's handwriting. A small start toward making things right. "Please forgive me. Forgive him." The word stung worse than the sale itself. He thought money could patch betrayal. He didn't understand. This wasn't about dollars. It was about ownership. He'd taken the only thing in my life that was truly mine. Now he wanted forgiveness at a discount. That night, I sat by the window and thought about every choice that led here. Every time I stayed late at work while Ethan partied. Every time Dad said, "He's just finding his way, Rachel. Be patient." Every time I believed family came before fairness. That was the last night I cried. Because the next morning, I stopped being the victim. I called my lawyer. Asked about property transfer laws, fraud, and signatures. And what she told me changed everything. Turns out, Dad hadn't sold the apartment legally. He'd signed using the power of attorney, an outdated one I'd given him years ago when I was overseas. It had expired, which meant the sale was invalid. At least on paper, but the buyer was real. The transaction was real, and reversing it? It would take months, maybe years. Still, I had something. A crack in the armor. A way back in, but revenge, I realized, wasn't about getting even. It was about getting control, and I'd spent too long giving mine away. 2 weeks later, I did something unexpected. I called Dad. He sounded surprised. "Rachel?" "Yeah," I said. "Can we talk?" A long pause. "Of course, sweetheart. We met at the diner by the old pier, our usual place years ago. He was already there nursing a coffee, pretending not to be nervous. "I'm sorry," he said before I even sat down. "I thought I was helping." I know what you thought," I interrupted softly. "But I need you to listen now." He looked up, confused but hopeful. "I forgive you," I said. His shoulders relaxed, eyes glistening. "Really?" "Yes," I smiled. "But on one condition," he frowned. "What condition?" "I want to see the business." "The one you sold my apartment for." His jaw tightened. "Why?" "Because if my money's in it, I deserve to see where it went." He hesitated, then nodded. "All right, tomorrow." That night I didn't sleep again. But this time it wasn't grief keeping me awake. It was a calculation. If I were going to forgive him, truly forgive him, I needed to know exactly what he'd destroyed, and who'd helped him do it. The next morning, Dad picked me up in his old truck. The silence between us was thick but calm. He kept glancing over, maybe expecting me to explode again. I didn't. When we pulled up to Ethan's office, I almost laughed. A converted warehouse with luxury cars lined outside like a showroom. Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Bentleys, all shining under morning light. Ethan came out, wearing sunglasses and a grin that screamed arrogance. "Didn't think I'd see you here," he said. "Yeah," I replied. "Neither did I." Dad smiled awkwardly. "Your sister wanted to check out the place, son." Ethan clapped him on the back. "Of course. Family's always welcome." He showed us around, desks, a lounge, even a mini bar. Every inch of it screamed money. "My money, so?" Ethan asked, arms wide. "What do you think?" I smiled faintly. "I think it's impressive." Dad looked relieved. For the first time in months, I saw him smile. And that's when I knew. They had no idea what was coming next. That night, I opened my laptop. Pulled up every document, every post, every file I could find. The business had investors, leases, digital assets, and names I didn't recognize. But one stood out: the LLC registration. Guess whose name was still listed as an inactive managing member? Mine. Apparently, Dad and Ethan had used my name to apply for a permit before transferring the business completely to Ethan. Another technicality. Another legal thread waiting to be pulled. I leaned back, heart pounding. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I whispered to myself, "Okay, Dad. You wanted me to forgive you? I will. But not before you learn what forgiveness really costs." And that was the beginning of my plan. I started slow, measured. No shouting, no threats, just quiet observation. If Dad and Ethan wanted to treat me like a child, then I'd become something far more dangerous, a daughter who listens. For weeks, I watched their business from the shadows. Not physically, digitally. I tracked invoices, client lists, and posts from their social media team. I created a fake profile. Laura Brooks, finance consultant, attractive, professional, harmless. Ethan took the bait in 2 days. He messaged me late one night. "Hey Laura, love your work. We're scaling fast, could use advice." I smiled. Of course he could. I kept the tone simple. "Sure, send me your numbers." And just like that, he did. Cash flow sheets, revenue projections, partnership drafts, all the documents I needed to see where my money had gone. Within an hour, I knew the truth. The business wasn't thriving. It was bleeding. Ethan's luxury car startup was collapsing under debt. The launches were just for show. Every post, every sold-out caption was smoke and mirrors. My apartment money? It hadn't saved them. It had delayed their failure. That night, I stared at the numbers until my eyes burned. All that sacrifice, the years, the exhaustion, just to become another patch in their pride. I could have gone to the police. But legal justice is slow, and my father didn't steal from me out of malice. He did it out of arrogance, the kind that needed to see what it destroyed. So I planned something different. The next Sunday, Mom called. Her voice was hopeful again. "We're all having dinner here. You should come," I hesitated. But something inside me whispered, "Go. Revenge needs a stage, and family dinners make the best theaters." When I walked in, the smell of roasted chicken and rosemary filled the house. It used to mean comfort. Now it just smelled like lies. Ethan was already there, laughing with Dad. Mom looked relieved when she saw me. "See, the family's back together again." We sat down. For a while, it almost felt normal. Then Dad cleared his throat. "I've been thinking," he said, cutting into his food. "Maybe we can all move past this now." I looked at him, calm. "Past what?" He hesitated. "The misunderstanding? I know you were upset, but things are improving." "Ethan's business is starting to turn around," Ethan smirked. "Yeah, I got a new investor coming next month." "Big one, will be global soon." I tilted my head. "Investor? What's his name?" Ethan waved a hand. "Confidential. But trust me, he's real." Dad chuckled proudly. "That's my boy. Taking risks, making things happen." Mom smiled faintly. "I'm just glad everyone's smiling again." I wanted to tell them right then that their investor was fake. That I was the investor. That every email Ethan was exchanging, every promise he was making, was being routed through me. But not yet. "Timing is everything," so I smiled back. "Congratulations, Ethan. I'm sure you'll make Dad proud." He grinned, completely unaware. "Oh, I already have." That week, I played my role perfectly. As Lara, I offered to invest $100,000 in exchange for partial ownership. Ethan agreed instantly. No lawyer, no due diligence. Just pure desperation dressed as confidence. When the contract came through, I added one tiny clause. Something about liability reassignment. A quiet legal trick that transferred all outstanding debts to the company's registered managing member, and guess whose name was still on that old LLC file? Mine, except not for long. Because the same clause also transferred that liability to the next managing member appointed by the board. A board of one, Ethan, he signed without reading. He always did. 3 days later, I received the signed document. Digital ink, time-stamped. It felt heavier than paper, like proof that the universe still had a sense of balance. That Friday, I went to see Dad again. He was outside fixing the old fence, sleeves rolled up, pretending everything was normal. "Hey," I said quietly. He turned, smiling with cautious hope. "Rachel, good to see you." "I wanted to thank you," I said, "for teaching me something important." He frowned. "What's that?" How to take control. He didn't understand. Not yet. But he would. 2 weeks later, the company collapsed. The fake investor deal fell apart when the funds never arrived. Suppliers demanded payment. Employees quit. Cars were repossessed one by one, and all those unpaid loans, deferred contracts, and pending lawsuits, they were now legally bound to one person, Ethan. The liability clause I inserted turned him from CEO to scapegoat overnight. He went from luxury suits to panic calls in less than 48 hours. I watched the chaos unfold from my laptop. The same way he'd flaunted his success, I now witnessed his downfall. One morning he showed up at my door, unshaven, angry, desperate. "You did this," he spat. "Did what?" I asked, keeping my tone flat. "You ruined me. Someone hacked my business." I stepped aside slowly. "Come in." He stormed inside, pacing. "Everything's gone, Rachel. The investors pulled out, the accounts are frozen. Dad's furious. He says you had something to do with this." I looked at him, silent for a moment. Then I said it, softly, almost kindly. "Ethan, I didn't ruin you. You ruined yourself. You just finally noticed." He blinked. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" "It means actions have weight," I said. "And you've been living like gravity doesn't exist." He stared at me, confusion turning into realization. "You're Lara." The room went still. "You're the investor," he whispered. "You set me up." I smiled faintly. "No, I gave you a chance to read the contract." "You didn't." His face twisted in rage. "You're insane." "Maybe," I said. "But I'm free, and you're broke." He left, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. I exhaled slowly. It wasn't joy I felt. It was release. That night, Dad called. He didn't sound angry, just broken. "What did you do, Rachel?" I paused. "What I had to." "You destroyed your brother." "No," I said quietly. "You did. When you sold what was mine to save what wasn't yours." He was silent for a long time. Then, softly, "I thought family meant sacrifice." "It does," I said. "But not theft. Not betrayal disguised as love," he sighed. "Can't you just forgive me?" I closed my eyes. The same words from his note. "Forgive you?" I repeated. "I already did. I just didn't say what that forgiveness would cost." He didn't call again after that. Weeks passed. Ethan filed for bankruptcy. Dad sold his truck to cover legal fees. Mom tried to hold everything together, the same way she always did. Sometimes I'd drive by their house and park across the street. The lights were dimmer now. The laughter is gone. Did I feel guilty? Yes, but only in the quiet hours when the world stopped moving. Because revenge isn't victory, it's balance, and balance hurts everyone. One evening, Mom showed up at my door again. Her eyes wear-tired, her hands trembling slightly. She didn't ask to come in, she just stood there. "Your father's not well," she said softly. "He's been drinking again. He misses you." I looked away. "He made his choice." "He made a mistake," she whispered. "So did you. That stung." But she wasn't wrong. I'd burned the bridge so completely, there was nothing left but ash. She handed me a small box. "Your apartment keys." The buyer backed out. "It's officially yours again." My breath caught. "What?" your lawyer called him. Explained the invalid authorization. He agreed to withdraw. Said the place had bad energy. I almost laughed through the tears. "Maybe it does." Mom smiled sadly. "Your dad wanted you to have them back." "He said it's the least he could do." She paused, eyes glassy. He's been asking if you'd ever forgive him. I looked down at the keys in my palm. Cold, heavy, familiar, forgiveness. That word again. I realized then, forgiveness wasn't something you gave to heal others. It was something you used to heal yourself. I hugged Mom for the first time in months. "I'll think about it," I said quietly. She nodded. "That's all he needs to hear." That night, I drove to the apartment. The city was quiet. Lights flickered on the river. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air smelled of dust and memory. My old furniture was gone, but the view was still the same. I walked to the window and whispered, "Welcome home." But peace didn't come easily. Not yet, because Dad would still call. And someday soon, I'd have to answer. Revenge doesn't come in one moment. It unfolds, quietly, deliberately, like a chess game where every move is personal. By the time I stepped back into my apartment, I already knew what came next. I wasn't going to destroy Dad. That had already happened. I was going to teach him. The first lesson was truth. For years, he'd taught me that loyalty meant silence, that family problems stayed behind closed doors. But secrets rot in the dark. So I opened the blinds. I compiled everything, the forged documents, the expired power of attorney, the property sale trail, and sent them to his lawyer. Not to sue, to expose, so he'd see in black and white how fragile his righteousness had been. A week later, Mom called. "He's furious," she said softly. "He says you humiliated him." "I didn't," I replied. "He humiliated himself. I just turned on the light." The second lesson was accountability. Ethan's bankruptcy had left a mess. Unpaid employees, clients demanding refunds, reputation in ruins. I reached out to them. Every single one. I told them I was the previous silent investor, and that I'd make things right. They didn't need to know the whole truth. Just enough to trust me. Then, I started something new, a consulting agency. Small, honest, transparent. I named it Tomorrow & Co. because that's what the apartment had always meant to me. Tomorrow. Within 2 months, 3 of Ethan's former employees joined me. Then 2 clients, then 4. Each one leaving him behind, walking toward the version of leadership he never understood. I didn't steal them. I just built something worth belonging to. The third lesson, forgiveness. Not the kind he wanted. The kind he didn't understand. Forgiveness isn't kindness. It's closure. And closure doesn't always look gentle. So I invited him to see what I'd built. He came one evening, wearing that same faded jacket he used to wear to my school plays. There was a limp in his walk now. Pride, maybe, weighed too much. The office was small but warm. Soft lighting. Clean desks. My employees were already gone for the day. He looked around, silent. "This yours?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "All mine." He nodded slowly, tracing a hand over the desk. "It's good to see you doing well." "Funny," I said. "I did better after you stopped helping." He winced. "I deserve that." "No," I said. "You deserve the truth." He looked up. "I was trying to protect this family. By selling part of it?" He swallowed hard. "I thought Ethan had a future." "I didn't think—" "No, you didn't," I said softly but sharply. "You didn't think I could fail. You didn't think I could succeed. You just didn't think about me." He sat down. For the first time, he looked small. Like the man behind the father. Tired, scared, full of regret. "I don't know how to fix this," he whispered. I looked at him for a long time. Then said, "You don't. You just live with it." I could have stopped there. But there was one final move left. The kind that doesn't hurt the body, only the heart. A month later, I listed the apartment for sale. Same view, same sunlight. But this time, I was the seller. When Dad found out, he called. "Why are you selling it?" "That place meant everything to you." "It did," I said. "But now it's just bricks and memories." "I already got what I needed from it." "And what's that?" he asked. "Freedom." He didn't argue. He just exhaled, defeated. You sound just like your mother when she finally stopped forgiving me. That silence cut deeper than any words could. The sale went through quickly. Cash buyer. Clean deal. I donated part of it to a women's housing fund. People trying to rebuild from family betrayal, financial or otherwise. Because sometimes revenge isn't taking. It's giving to those who still believe they can rise. I kept the rest. Not as profit. As a reminder that I survived the kind of heartbreak money can't measure. Weeks passed. The city kept moving. But something strange happened. Dad started visiting the office not to apologize but to help, fixing small things. Repainting the door. Carrying boxes, quietly, without asking. He never brought up the past again. And I never did either. It wasn't forgiveness. It was something different. Respect born from ruin. One evening, as he was leaving, he stopped by the door. Rachel, yeah? He hesitated. If I could go back? I wouldn't sell your apartment, I nodded. I know, he smiled faintly. But then again, maybe you wouldn't have become this strong. I looked at him for a moment. The man who broke me, and somehow helped me rebuild. Maybe that's the only thing we ever did right, I said quietly. He left, closing the door behind him. The sound was soft, final. That night, I sat alone in the office, lights dim, city humming outside. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry anymore, just whole, because revenge had given me what justice never could, the power to stand in the ruins and still call them mine. I picked up the phone, dialed Mom. She answered, her voice warm. Hey, sweetheart. I think I'm ready to forgive him, I said. There was a pause, the kind that feels like a sunrise. I think he's been waiting to hear that, she whispered. I know, I said. But this time, it's for me, and that was the real revenge. Not in destroying what hurt me, but in becoming someone it could never break again. The day I forgave my father, it rained. Not the violent kind, soft rain like a memory being rinsed clean. I met him at the park where he used to take me when I was little. Same bench, same willow tree. He was already there, coat damp, hands folded. When he saw me, he smiled, small, careful, almost afraid. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said. I almost didn't. We sat in silence for a while. The sound of rain filled the space between us. I lost more than money, he whispered finally. I lost my daughter. I looked at him, eyes steady. You didn't lose me, Dad. You just stopped seeing me. He nodded slowly, and I saw the truth land, heavy, but accepted. We talked for hours after that. About Mom, about Ethan, about the things we could never fix. But for the first time, he didn't defend himself. He just listened. When we said goodbye, there was no grand apology. No promises. Just two people standing in the rain, learning how to start again. That night, I returned to my empty apartment for the last time. The lights were off, the city quiet. I walked through each room slowly, touching the walls like old friends. This place had seen every version of me. The dreamer, the worker, the daughter, the avenger, but now, it was time to let her rest. I placed the keys on the counter, took one last look at the view, and whispered, "Thank you." Outside, the rain had stopped. The air smelled like something new, clean, uncertain, free. I didn't know where I was going next. But for the first time, I didn't need to, because revenge had been the bridge, and forgiveness, the road that followed. If you asked me now whether I regret what I did, I'd say no. Sometimes destruction is the only way to rebuild honestly. But I also learned something my father never did, that love and betrayal can live in the same house and still find a way to forgive each other by morning, so, yes, I forgave him, not because he earned it, but because I was tired of carrying the weight of what he broke. And as I drove away from that apartment for the last time, the city lights reflected on the wet pavement, and for the first time in years, I didn't see loss. I saw peace. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones we'd still die to protect. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, and found the strength to rise again, you already know how this story feels. Hit subscribe, because there's another story waiting, and next time, someone else will learn what forgiveness really costs.